Tesla sales is collapsing. Oh my gosh, if you haven't seen the comments on every video I've made for the last week, as somebody with a brand new account is there to tell me that it is over. People are so mad, they're so furious. It is not going to happen. Oh, it's down in China. Can't be any reason for that. It's down in Norway, the place that loves EVs the most. What is going on? Well, it turns out there's some context to it, and there's a reason serious prognosticators have not shared your doom and gloom. I'm here to give you some context, and I'm joined today by Cern Basher, who knows his way around some numbers and some spreadsheets. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Cern, you've heard the terrible news. What on earth is going on?
It's bad, Brian.
Oh, it's bad.
There's no way around it. The numbers are bad.
Yeah. What are we going to do? So let's pretend for a second that maybe some context is missing. Q4 Inventories drew down. Talk to me about this. By the way, this is from an account called @CernBasher. Yeah, that's a gentleman I'll have on the show right now. Tell me about this.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah, so this is the measure of the number of days of supply that Tesla has at the end of each quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this has fluctuated from, let's say, 5 days at the low in 2022 to a peak of almost 60 days in 2017. Tesla manages this to the best of their ability, but in particular, if we look at the fourth quarter, the last bar in this chart on the far right, the inventory days were down to 12. Right. So that's per the calculation. However, when you think about what happens when a vehicle is made in a factory, it has to be transported somewhere to be delivered. I don't know about you, but the last time I got a vehicle, I didn't show up at the factory to pick it up.
While it was still wet.
Right. Yeah. I had to wait for my Cybertruck to get put on a truck and then probably put on a train and then put on another truck and delivered to me. So it takes a few days.
Definitely.
Right. So what I did was sort of figure out globally a rough estimate for what I thought were the transport days needed to move vehicles from Tesla factories to the eventual buyers around the world. And I came up with about 3 weeks of a global average travel time.
I think that's definitely fair.
Yeah. And with the way they do it in terms of inventory, that works out to 18 days. They skip a day each week. So instead of 21 days, it's 18 days. So if we take the inventory numbers and reduce them by 18 days, we get what I call true inventory days.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps a better measure of the actual inventory that's globally. And so you can see they're now at the end of the fourth quarter, true inventory days were actually negative.
Mm-hmm.
Negative 6 days is, per the calculation. Now it has been lower before, but we're not talking about before. We're talking about the weak numbers in January and giving some context around that. And if you have a negative 6-day supply of inventory, well, yes, your sales are going to hurt in the following period, right?
Yes.
At least early in the following period, which is what we're talking about in the month of January. So this, I think, is a big factor. And of course, this was very intentional on Tesla's part to drive these inventories down because I don't know if you've heard, Brian, but they're coming out with some new models.
I had heard about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about this real quick. On the first chart, when days of inventory get low, it is not always a good thing. There are people who say, oh, I saw articles that compared this low 5 days of inventory to a few quarters later when it was, still under 20, still the lowest in the industry. And I saw actual articles from actual, I assume, clowns saying Tesla's days of inventory has swollen by 400%. Guys, anything under 30 days is golden because really it does take a month. Even when we were at the lowest 5 days, that's impossible because that's the average. There's a lot of people who cannot take instant delivery. There were people who would go to the factory to pick up there, but that was very unusual and very chaotic. And those expedite costs end up costing a fortune. You don't want that. Some days in inventory is healthy. So what you're saying is that in Q4, we sold more cars than we had in previous quarters. And you can tell because the days of inventory remaining went down. And you guys, the sales are definitely over because Elon went political last July. Okay, if that's the case, wouldn't Q4 not have been their biggest quarter ever? Q4 was the biggest quarter ever, right?
It was.
So I'm not saying politics doesn't play a factor. I'm not saying it hasn't had some impact on potential sales. I believe it has. It's impossible to think it hasn't. If you come out and take any stand, if you cheer for the wrong team at the wrong game, that can impact it. Well, I can't. I mean, the guy roots for the Pirates. I can't do it. There are people who will say that. So this is just one part of the picture.
It's interesting, though, Brian, in that discussion about political things in terms of turning people off. I don't hear many people talking about the other side of that. There's probably a relatively equal number of people that are now excited about buying a Tesla because of Elon's political views.
I haven't found that to be true yet. I know the sentiment has shifted. I haven't seen any evidence that the buying patterns have shifted. It could be in part because a lot of red states do not have red areas are typically rural areas, not exclusively, of course, but there are not as many superchargers in rural areas. The chargers are concentrated in the blue areas, which is one obstacle to adoption. But the other is it takes years to need a new car. So that can have an impact too. I will believe that conservatives are over the hate for the Teslas when they stop rolling coal. And that hasn't happened yet. So it's possible. I'm waiting for the data. But we got to talk. But that's just, guys, you haven't gotten into any true specifics yet. What about Norway? Did you hear Norway? They're 97% electric, and Tesla sales tanked again. What is that about?
Do you know what happens in Norway every January?
I know Tesla doesn't ship to Norway in January, if that's what you mean.
Well, it could be that. And also there's maybe a good reason why they don't bother shipping to Norway in January. It gets a little cold there.
It does get a little cold.
Now, of course, it's cold in other months there too, but there's some seasonality impacts going on, right? So if you are an automaker, then why bother shipping to a place like that when it's really cold? You probably don't have too many people interested in buying a vehicle when it's the darkest, coldest part of the winter.
If you can't ship them there, that means that those who had vehicles sitting on lots waiting around are the ones selling vehicles. But every January is low in Norway.
Yep.
All you have to do, I'm not saying that this is easy analysis. One must first know what a calendar is, and second, how to read one. So there are some barriers to entry on this discussion. But all of Europe's down. I'm going to show you this chart that James Stevenson put out. Look at that. Oh, God damn it. I'm not showing it. So I'm going to show this chart.
It's such a great chart. No one can see it. There we go.
Yep. There we go. So I'm going to show this chart here, which shows that all the sales in Europe, look at that. Tesla's the purple line here. It has fallen off a cliff, but Tesla sales are so bad that nobody's buying cars from any brand, apparently.
It's interesting how all the other brands are affected by Tesla.
It's because it's just that toxic. You know what? I used to like cars, man, but now, I don't know, horse and buggy for me, baby. So is it fair to say, based on this picture, that perhaps the doom and gloom predictions are a little premature?
Well, yes, I think so. I think that's safe to say. Particularly when you're looking at sales over, let's say, an annualized period. Which even that is a relatively short time period. But yes, 1 month does not make a year.
If you were to look at inventory, vehicles in inventory, and by the way they calculate that is how many vehicles do you have unsold divided by your sales rate. That's very, very basic math.
Yep.
If you were to look at it at the end of each quarter, which you can do, you can see a reasonable trend. If you were to look at it during the quarter, you'd see very different numbers. You would see that in the first month of the quarter, they make a lot more vehicles that they ship out. There's a lot more in transit. And then by the end of the quarter, it catches up. They've unwound the delivery wave quite a bit, but not entirely. So that is also a factor. Another one I wished to point out was, well, China sales are down. China sales are down. A lot of people, I get it. People don't always understand how holidays in other countries work. This year, Chinese New Year is in January, where last year it was in February. So last year, China's slowdown happened a month later. This year, it happened in January. Well, other brands were still moving more units. Yeah, probably from lots. They weren't making more. They were just clearing inventory. So I think that's another factor worth mentioning.
It will be interesting in early March, Brian, when we know the full February data for China, and people are exclaiming how impressive the sales in China have been in the month of February year over year.
Yeah. Well, also worth noting, the Juniper deliveries have not begun yet. Those begin in March. So I think we're going to see a quiet January, a quiet February, and a ridiculous March. That would make sense because these cars are piling up somewhere. But if we're talking about China, we got to talk about BYD, because BYD outsold Tesla in the UK, Spain, and Portugal. Isn't that amazing? Look at that, up 551%. Right, because last year they sold 300 cars. It's pretty easy to go up 500% when you only sold 300 cars. These are very small numbers.
They are, but you've got to give Tesla credit in Ireland. They're killing it in Ireland.
+4.
If they would only sell more green cars, the Irish might be more interested in buying Teslas, but clearly they're doing something right in Ireland.
They're doing something right. 117 up. But I mean, again, on how many? It's exactly. Just the unit volume is not as impressive. So AJ, friend of the Rebellionaire Lion Group, has shared this. And by the way, Rebellionaire, I am also a affiliate of Rebellionaire. And when I say affiliate, I don't mean there's a financial relationship. There is not. We are just in the same media group, so to speak. We have a little back channel discussion where we dig absurdly deep into the numbers. Tesla sales are tanking across the world. Well, for one thing, Model Y, a lot of people are waiting for it. Do you believe that that is accurate?
Oh, I do. I think that's very clear. And when you see the new Model Y and the improvements that they've made, I think demand is going to be through the roof for what was the best-selling vehicle in 2023 and likely in 2024 of any model vehicle in the world. And they've just made it that much better. So demand is going to be through the roof. There'll be supply constrained, I think, on the Model Y for a long time.
I agree with that. And I know I couldn't get a new one today if I wanted. I'm waiting for the third row. We heard confirmation very recently from Lars, yes, on Jay Leno's Garage, that the performance and third row editions are coming out later this year. It also worth noting, Europe imposed an additional 8%, now a total of 18% import tariff on the Model 3s made in Shanghai. Seasonality, of course, the seasonality, Q1 is always the softest, but we're looking at other manufacturers too who are having different levels of softness. One-time effects on special markets, depending on the market, year-on-year comparisons can be affected significantly by changes. And Germany had their complete removal of incentives. That has impacted all electric sales. So yeah, these factors are not huge. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of the same discussion we had, I think, about a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, with the weakness in the first quarter that Tesla had with the terrorist attack that they had on their factory in Berlin.
Oh, yeah.
The Red Sea shipping delays, right? They had to go around the Horn of Africa, added a number of days, if not weeks, to the shipping. And then the same questions about demand. So, those that are bearish on Tesla certainly take the opportunity whenever there's any kind of weakness, however temporary it might be, to point out that that's the end of EV sales, and clearly that's not the case. Tesla didn't have a great year of growth last year, but it was a very solid year, and particularly the fourth quarter.
Absolutely true. There's a missing factor I haven't heard anyone mention yet. And this is something where I think you and I have a little bit better skill set at looking at. When there was a 1 week delay in Cybertruck production, they sent workers home. If we're looking at a 30-40% drop globally, why haven't we seen the layoffs? Do you think they're just letting people hang out at the water cooler? Because I have not seen any, and I've got a lot of feelers out there. Uh, if it wasn't in the news, I'd probably still know about it. Where are the layoffs?
I would hope that if those workers are not working, which I don't believe is the case, that they'd be putting humanoid bots together. That would be my ideal situation, but that is also not happening at this point.
Even if it was, it'd probably be happening in one factory, not
Yeah.
4.
Right.
So that is ridiculous. And by the way, this is not going to be helped by the Cybertruck, because as we all know, the Cybertruck is a huge flop and nobody wants it, and it's done. It's a niche product, or to some of my viewers who get angry when I say it that way, it's a niche product, or to people who get mad no matter what, it's a niche product. Explore within. I would point out that we've got other kind of vehicles here. Is this a niche product, the Honda Ridgeline? Because the Cybertruck is already outpacing it in sales. They only sold 45,000 last year. The Cybertruck is definitely going to be selling more than that this year. It is clear from Q4 results before the federal tax credit went into place. And if you drop the price 8-10% on something like that, you are going to increase sales. And we do believe that later this year, there will be a single motor version of it, which will likely improve sales yet again for those who need the utility, but not the speed.
And let me just add my voice to the chorus. I'm not a truck guy. I never have been a truck guy. When I saw the Cybertruck initially, I didn't like the design.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while personally to come around to the idea of a triangle-shaped truck. Okay, I got my Cybertruck back in September. I have never had a better vehicle. I've never owned a better vehicle in my life. I've never had a better experience driving the truck. And I've driven the truck across this country into Canada and back. I put thousands of miles on the truck. It is an amazing vehicle, particularly for road trips. And I have not had one issue with the truck. It is an incredible vehicle. And I think that over time, people will come to see the Cybertruck as, for what it really is. And certainly bringing the price down as they ramp up production will be a great aid to selling more of the trucks. I also think that it's inevitable that the Cybertruck becomes the police vehicle of choice. And that over time, probably a decent amount of demand. So I think the Cybertruck has a bright future ahead of it. It just takes a little while sometimes to ramp these things up.
Absolutely. And it is, there were a lot of difficulties in manufacturing it initially and getting it ramped, because it involved a whole lot of things that had never been done in a Tesla vehicle, and a number that had never been done in any mass-produced vehicle. You have to work your way into that. And the people say, well, they should have done the compact first. Didn't have enough batteries. We know that the Cybertruck was battery constrained. If they'd taken all those batteries and just put them into compacts instead, that 35,000 we sold last year would have only been 70,000. That's not a good mass market vehicle. You need more batteries than that. So there are reasons that they chose to do it. And also the move to 48 volt. You want to make that move in a vehicle which is ramping slowly rather than needs millions out of the gate. There, you got to walk before you can run. Yes, but they're going to sell more compacts, right? If that's the case, they should have skipped every other vehicle and just started there. That's not how you do it. The engineering would not have been mature enough to make it happen. Other companies have tried that with limited success. Starting at the low end has been problematic for a number of companies that have tried it. So to all of you out there in the comments, nonstop whining that sales are done, they're dead, it's over, why aren't you addressing it? I have addressed it. And again, there's a reason serious analysts do not share your conclusion. The armchair variety are even themselves a bit hesitant to say it because the data does not yet support it. Maybe by the end of February, certainly by the end of March, we'll have a clearer picture. But we are retooling 4 factories to produce Tesla's largest volume vehicle, the world's largest vehicle. And it is pretty clear that the people who know the things are not selling based on this. And for that matter, If you're really concerned about a 1/4 lag in one sector of the company's business, you are in the wrong investment. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's very well said. That 1/4 does not make the year. Tesla has done an amazing job of ramping up or beginning production of this new Model Y in 4 factories around the world. I don't know of any other car company that's ever done that. Right, that's an impressive feat. And it's seemingly the downtime between the old model and the new model was pretty short, so that's very impressive. But yes, the first quarter is going to be terrible from a delivery standpoint, right? The second quarter will be a ramping quarter. Third and fourth should be better. And if, like you said, if that's giving people pause for concern about investing in Tesla, again, not financial advice, that you're focused on the wrong things if you're worried about just quarterly deliveries. There are some other very exciting things going on with the company that have nothing to do with the Model Y.
Did you know that that it's possible to sell products that don't have wheels? I just learned this. My whole world is shaken. Guys, in the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? How much fun was it hanging out with Cern Basher? His links will be in the description. Everybody else, like, subscribe. Pretty please do subscribe. I only need 100 a day to hit 100 grand by the end of the year. It would be so prestigious. And if I can hit 100,000 subscribers, I can stop begging. That'd be cool too. Think of all the time you'd save. You're coming out ahead. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop.
Thanks, Brian.